Hey everyone, welcome back to Turkish series stars. Settle in, because what I'm about to share isn't just another rumor, it's a breathless, aching confession that has everyone in the industry leaning closer to the screen. If you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Now, let's talk about the moment Elçin Sangu finally let the truth spill, the kind of truth that can't be scripted or rehearsed, the kind that changes the air around two people forever. After months of moving through sets, promotions, and interviews with her usual grace, Elçin chose a quiet corner, almost like she needed the silence to steady herself, and spoke about the one thing she had refused to name. She said it didn't happen with fanfare or fireworks. It wasn't the kind of realization you see in movies, even though she and Barış Arduç live inside them for a living. It arrived like a whisper. She talked about a simple day, a simple setup, a scene meant to pass by without a second thought. She was in costume as Samra. Some of you even know the character's full name in the storyline as Semra Arda, standing opposite him, the man whose presence had already begun to rearrange her heartbeat. He was Gökberk on the call sheet that day, Gökberk Yildirim in the script, but on the other side of the lens he was just Barış, guarded eyes, easy warmth, that quiet assurance he carries without even trying. And then it happened. Their marks were hit, the camera moved, the crew stepped back. They looked at each other as they'd done 100 times. Only this time, the world fell away. She didn't use big words. She didn't build it up. She just admitted that something clicked in the space between their gazes, and in that soft, stolen second nothing else mattered. The script faded, the light rigs disappeared, the hum of the set blurred. It wasn't Samra who was standing there anymore, not Semra Arda with lines tucked neatly in her sleeve, but Elçin, with no pretense to protect her. She had tried for weeks to convince herself that she simply admired her co-star, that she respected the discipline, the care he brought to each moment, the way he could make a scene feel safe and dangerous at the exact same time. She tried to name it professionalism, camaraderie, anything that would let her sleep. But after that day, every word he spoke found a deeper echo, every small kindness seemed to land where it hurt most, in the tender place where truth waits. She told it like a confession to herself more than to anyone listening. She said her pulse changed whenever he stepped close. The cameras didn't catch those beats, but she felt them, tumbling into corners of the day she couldn't tidy up anymore. When the spotlight swung too harshly toward her, he'd cut a path with those unhurried gestures he's known for, standing slightly forward, letting the noise hit him first, a quiet shield. He didn't make a display of it. He never does. But she noticed, and in noticing, she understood that this wasn't a passing spark. It wasn't infatuation dressed up as art. It was something that made her feel exposed and seen at the same time. She didn't name him outright, she didn't have to. The note in her voice gave everything away. It wasn't the high rush of excitement. It was steadier, almost resigned, like she had finally decided to stop arguing with herself. She said the truth doesn't need a stage. The truth just needs you to stop running. And that night, after the now famous kiss everybody keeps replaying, the one the internet captured, edited, looped, and crowned as the best of the season, she didn't sleep. Not because she was afraid of headlines or whispers or the way fans dissect every blink and breath. She stayed awake because she could still feel the moment pressing against her skin. For once, she didn't care what she was supposed to feel. She cared about what she actually felt. Let me set the scene for you. The kiss had been teased for weeks, part of the storyline that had Samra, or Semra Arda if you prefer what the script calls her, finally colliding with Gökberk, yes, the same Gökberk Yildirim that the fandom refuses to stop talking about. The director called action, and what happened on that take carried a pulse of its own. The set fell into a kind of hush you can't fake. It wasn't just the choreography of lips and breath, it was how they moved into each other as if they'd already had 1,000 unspoken conversations. When the cut came, people pretended to go back to work, but everyone felt it. The energy was different, like someone had thrown open a window on a warm night. Elçin said there were no big conversations after that. No urgent text, no long calls trying to label it. Just a quiet that didn't feel empty. It felt full, dense, like they had silently agreed to stop pretending this was only about Samra and Gökberg. She described the days that followed as a slow shift, the kind you only notice when your hands start moving differently, when your eyes find the other person first without telling them to, when the pauses between takes begin to feel like the center of the day instead of the edges. And here's what makes this chapter impossible to ignore, he answered without words. If you know anything about Barış, you know he carries his reactions like a secret. He doesn't use interviews as shields. He lets presence do the talking. The very next morning on set, he didn't grandstand. He didn't perform some overblown gesture for people to catch on their phones. He simply stayed near her. When the lights were too bright, he shifted. When the questions got pointy, he absorbed them. Not a speech, not a promise, but the sort of consistency that says more than any quote. Call it protective, call it instinct, call it love, whatever you choose, it was unmistakable. One person who was there during a short break told me something that still gives me chills. They were resetting a scene, crew moving like a choreographed storm. He walked over, not hurried, not coy. He offered his hand, palm up, the way you might offer someone a place to rest. She looked at him, and in that look there was a whole lifetime of conversation. She put her hand in his. She didn't take it back. She just smiled, small and real, the kind that reaches the eyes last. That was it. Nothing scripted. Nothing directed. But for everyone around them, the line between make-believe and truth dissolved in that simple touch. The atmosphere on set changed after that. You could sense it before you could point to it, like warmth slowly seeping into a room. The scenes kept rolling. The story of Samra, Semir Arda to those who cling to every credit, and Gökberg Yildirim continued to twist and turn for the audience. The show must go on, as they say. But the real story, the one no writer had plotted, started filming itself in the spaces in between. Glances lingering a fraction longer. Smiles showing up when nobody had cued them. The kind of silence shared by people who have already told each other everything without saying a word. Elçin didn't talk about courage or fear. She didn't romanticize the risk. She just said that lying to herself had become heavier than telling the truth. And that truth was simple: loving him didn't arrive as a decision. It arrived like a season. She didn't choose it. She woke up one day inside it. She didn't vow to define it for the world, either. Whether public or private, whether shouted from rooftops or kept between two beating hearts, she accepted that it had already changed her, and that denying it would make her a stranger to herself. For those of you asking whether this is just another on-screen tale bleeding into real life, think about the kind of connection that doesn't need grand gestures to announce itself. Think about how he has always been reserved, almost stubborn about his privacy. And how that very restraint becomes loud when he uses it to shelter someone else. He didn't go live. He didn't tweet subtext. He made the simplest choice a person can make for another: he showed up, fully, in the quiet. From there, the days took on a rhythm of their own. They arrived separately, because of course they did. They did the work, the table reads, the rehearsals, the retakes when laughter kept breaking the edges of the scene. But between setups, in the spaces that don't make it into the behind-the-scenes reels, the earth tilted. She would catch him looking at her like he had just remembered something important. He would reach for a glass of water and set it in front of her without asking. Little things, the kind that don't register until you realize they've built a home between two people. And let's talk about that kiss one more time, because you won't let me leave it there. It became a phenomenon online, a freeze-frame obsession, fans insisting they could see the shift in that moment, as if the camera had captured an actual heartbeat. The clip is everywhere, cut into montages, slowed down, set to songs that make everything feel a little more dangerous. But for her, it wasn't about the trend. After it all, after the calls and the messages and the noise, she lay awake in the dark and played it over, not as footage, but as feeling. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about where to stand, how to tilt her head, how the scene would read. She was thinking about what she wanted, without apology. When you strip away the gossip and the shining gloss of the industry, you're left with two people who found each other in the middle of a machine built to distract. It sounds almost impossible, but maybe that's why it feels so true. While the world points cameras at them and tries to decode every move, they've chosen the older language, the one that requires no translation, consistency, presence, touch. A hand offered and accepted. A glance that doesn't flinch. The unremarkable miracle of being there for someone, every single day. Yes, the cameras keep rolling. Yes, Samra and Gökberg keep living out the tangles the writers throw at them, Simur Arda and Gökberg Yildirim, as the credits remind us. But behind that, something unscripted is writing itself line by line. It began with a gaze, bloomed in a kiss, and settled into the steady hum of two hearts that finally stopped pretending. No director called action on this. No one yelled cut. And that's exactly why it feels so real. So, is this a headline? Is this the moment everything changes? Maybe. Or maybe it already did, quietly, while no one was looking. What matters is that she isn't running from her own truth anymore, and he isn't asking her to. Whatever name the world puts on it, whatever theories are spun from blurry photos and sly interviews, the essence remains the same, a woman who finally admitted what her heart had been saying, and a man who answered without a single word. This is Turkish series Stars, and you know I'll keep watching every frame, every breath between them, and bring you the moments that matter. If this story held you the way it held me, tap like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what unfolds next. Until then, take care of your hearts, and I'll see you in the next one.